Hello students, once again I welcome you all. Today I am going to discuss a brief history of Indian writing in English, part 4. So students, you might have seen my previous 3 videos on the same topic, that is a brief history of Indian writing in English, part 1, part 2 and part 3. So now in this session, I am going to talk on Indian writing in English with special reference to poetry. Students, I set a few objectives for this lesson. First of all, I will try to elaborate the literary background of Indian writing in English with special reference to writing poetry. Number 2, I will try to take a review of the growth and development of Indian English verses. And number 3, I will also put an effort to describe the different phases and the influence of the contemporary social and political situations. Let us get into the realm of Indian writing in English, poetry. Friends, today, as you know, the entire scenario in India has gone through a radical change. And there are a number of educated Indians who use English language as a medium of creative exploration and expression of their experiences of life. Their writing has now developed into a substantial body of literature. The poetry which is being written by all these poets is one of the most flourishing genre of literature, not only in Indian writing in English, but the literature of the world. When you minutely observe the Indian writing in English, especially the poetry section, you will come across 3 different phases of poetry. That is, the bulk of poetry in Indian writing in English can be divided into 3 major phases. Phase 1, the imitative phase, which is considered from 1850 to 1900 century. Second, the assimilative phase, which is considered from 1901 to 1947, that is the independence of India. And the third phase, the experimental phase, which is considered from 1947, 15th of August onwards till date. So these are the 3 phases of Indian writing in English, more particularly poetry section. Now, I will look into each and every phase with some finer details. Let us first talk about the imitative phase. Students, you might have understood that the title itself is quite apt and suggestive. The word imitate or imitative clearly indicates that there is a sort of imitation which has taken place in this particular phase, and the first generation poets were mostly relying on others and trying to copy their form, method, techniques, language, and so on. So let us see now what actually happens as far as imitative phase of Indian writing in English poetry section is concerned. So the first and the most important thing that you need to understand right in the beginning is concerned that the poets of this particular phase were self-expressing themselves to the larger extent. The early poets were projecting landscape, moods, fancies, dreams, and so on. The poets from 1850 to 1900 century were trying to find a new possibility of feeling, form, expression, technique, themes, and so on. But they were mostly leaning heavily on the romantic poets and the Victorian poets from English literature. So here, one thing we need to understand that the pioneer poets like Henry Derozio, Michael Madhusudan Dutt, B.M. Malahari, Toru Dutt, S.C. Dutt, Romesh Chandra Dutt, and others, they were, of course, the trendsetters, no doubt about it. But their poetry and the literary creativity was derived from the poets of English literature. So that's why this particular phase is called imitative phase of Indian writing in English with special reference to poetry. So they were the trendsetters who began to poeticize the Indian ethos, culture, society, and the something that was Indianness. But they were mostly influenced by the Romanticists, Victorian poets, and Georgian poets as well. So this is one of the very remarkable feature of the writings of the poets of the imitative phase. Let us look into the very selected poets with some possible finer details about them. And the first and the foremost is no one but Henry Louis Vivian Derozio. He was born on 18th of April, 1809 and died on 26th of December, 1831. He published an anthology of poetry by the name The Poems in 1827. The couple of very important poems from this anthology are The Harp of India, The Song of the Hindustani Minstrel. These two poems, along with other poems from this anthology, established Henry as an artist, as a poet. And he got name and fame in a very short period of time. Just in another year, that is 1828, Henry Louis published another anthology of poetry titled as The Fakir of Jangira, a metrical tale and other poems. The most important two poems from this anthology are The Fakir of Jangira and To India, My Native Land. Why do I mention these two or the other couple of poems? Because these poems are giving you the sense of patriotism and nationalism. In fact, Henry Louis Vivian Derozio was considered to be an Anglo-Indian poet. He was the Portuguese partially and Indian and English partially. So, but he never considered himself as an outsider. He always treated himself as an Indian only, and that is reflected very much in his writings. So, Derozio was known during his lifetime as the first national poet of modern India. See here, this term is very important. Even though he was the child of Portuguese and an English, still he considered himself that he himself was a genuine Indian. And he proves to be the first national poet of modern India. Second, the history of Anglo-Indian poetry is typically beginning with Derozio, but Derozio himself denied that he was not an Anglo-Indian, but an Indian only. Anyway, that is something different than the main track of our discussion today. We'll be focused more on his writings than on his personal life. So his poems are regarded as an important landmark in the history of the patriotic poetry of India. If at all you go back to the pages of history, or you keep on turning the pages of history, you will realize that whatever contribution he has made in the realm of poetry is giving you one particular feeling, and that feeling is the patriotic feeling. Whatever he wrote with a nationalistic approach, and that approach can be seen in his poetry also. And that's why his poems are regarded as an important landmark in the history of the patriotic poetry in India. Then we have another poet also belonging to the same phase of writing. That is Michael Madhusudan Dutt, born on 25th of January 1824 and died on 29th of June 1873. He was a Bengali poet, writer, dramatist, and so on. But more particularly, he is known even today for his creativity in the field of drama. He was a pioneer of Bengali drama, I would say. The Captive Lady, published in 1849, and some of his narrative poems that he published in 1861 have established him as an eminent writer or an eminent poet as such. Then you have the most important literary figure of the imitative phase of writing, that is Toru Dutt. In 1876, Toru Dutt published A Sheaf Gleaned in French Fields. Later, in 1878, she published Bianca. In one of my previous lectures, I discussed about it, The Spanish Maiden. It was also serialized by the Bengali magazine from January to April 1878 after her death. She has also written some French poems, and one more very famous which was published after her death, that is 1882, The Ancient Ballads and Legends of Hindustan. So I have just selected the three poets from the imitative phase. Doesn't mean that only three poets were there. We have got a number of poets ranging from the minor poets to the major poets, but I have just taken a few for our better understanding. Now I'll switch over to the another phase of writing, that is the assimilative phase. The assimilative phase is a kind of self-definition accompanied by heart-searching probe into cultural inheritance. And that was the genuine concern of the poets of the assimilative phase. If you see their writings, you will realize that the radical assurance of their sense of origin is also minutely observed over there. Especially this phase is considered to be from 1901 to 1947. And this phase largely forms because of the assimilative ideas collected altogether by the contemporary poets belonging to this particular age. But before I proceed with the detailed study of the selected poets of this phase, I would like to talk about two important women poets. One who is belonging to the previous generation or previous phase of writing, that is imitative phase of writing, that is your Toru Dutt, and the another belonging to the assimilative age of writing, that is Sarojini Naidu. Toru Dutt and Sarojini Naidu constituted a kind of watershed between the imitative and the assimilative phase. The predecessors' individual nostalgia as well as their successors' sense of crisis and quest for identity is very effectively exploited by Toru Dutt and Sarojini Naidu. So this is a kind of watershed between the couple of ages as such. The pioneer poets of this assimilative phase are Aurobindo Ghosh, Rabindranath Tagore, Harindranath Chattopadhyay, Sarojini Naidu, and a few more. But I would like to mention only 3 or 4 with further details over here in this lecture. And when you holistically look at this phase of writing, you will come to a conclusion with Aurobindo, Tagore, and Sarojini's perspective of writing. Let us get into the very particular observation that can be made from the writings of Aurobindo is, while Aurobindo's poetry was the search for the divine in man, whereas Tagore's poetry was the quest for the searching something beautiful in man and nature. And third, you have Sarojini Naidu, whose romantic muses underscored the charm and splendor of the traditional Indian life and Indian scenario. And this is how is the beauty of the writings of Aurobindo, Tagore, and Sarojini Naidu. Okay, anyhow, let us look into the details of Sri Aurobindo and his literary contributions in general. Savitri, a legend and a symbol, is an epic written by Sri Aurobindo Ghosh. In fact, this is the epic having 12 different books included within, and that goes for nearly 24,000 lines. See the length. So this is not big only in the length point of view. It is equally important in the artistic point of view, in the literary point of view, in the creativity point of view. And the other poems written by Aurobindo Ghosh are The Bride of the Fire, Evolution, The Golden Light, Life, The Dream Boat, and Life and Death. Now you have the another poet. I would say this name is known all over the world because more than 50 anthologies of poetry go to his credit, and that is no other than Rabindranath Tagore. He published The Golden Boat in 1894, Kanika in 1900, Manasi 1890, Gitanjali 1910, The Gardener 1913, Geetamalya 1914, Balaka 1916, and he also published Fruit Gathering in 1916, and then The Fugitive published in 1921. So actually there are a number of artistic creations or creative creations going to the credit of Rabindranath Tagore, being the first Indian, of course British Indian, receiving the Nobel Prize for Literature for Gitanjali, the song's offering. This man has created his own identity all over the world. Then you have Harindranath Chattopadhyay. Harindranath Chattopadhyay is also known for his poetic contributions belonging to this assimilative phase of writing. In 1918, he published The Fist of Youth. In 1922, The Magic Tree. 1923, Ancient Wings. 1944, Blood of Stones. 1955, Spring in Winter. And later, he also happens to publish some of the minor poems as well, and there are a few songs which are also going to his credit. So these are the poets or the major poets that I selected for discussion and example over here, belonging to the assimilative phase of writing. Now, I will proceed further with the third and the last phase of writing, that is the experimental phase of poetic writing. The poets emerged after independence, that is 15th of August 1947, were called the poets of the experimental phase. There was a different mood, there was a different kind of excitement among the people, because India got freedom from the political clutches of the British, and the outbreak of the poetic creativity, urgency of national self-definition, reflected painful experiences of the freedom struggle, the traumas of the partition, problems of cultural identity, social awareness and influences of the Western ideology, urbanization and industrialization, were the burning topics of the poets belonging to the third phase of writing. If you get into the details, you will find that there were a number of pioneer poets, those who contributed to the field of Indian writing in English, especially poetry writing. You have the names like Nizam Ezekiel, Dom Morris, P. Lal, Adil Jusawala, A.K. Ramanujan, R. Parsarthi, Jeev Patel, Arvind Mehrotra, Pritish Nandi, Kamla Das, Dilip Chitre, Shiv K. Kumar, Arun Kollatkar, and so on and so on. You will have a huge list of poets, those who have constantly contributed to the realm of Indian writing in English, that is poetry. Let us talk in general about the thematic concerns of the post-independence poet. The post-independence poetry actually underwent a sea change as far as the themes are concerned. There was a reason also. The poets faced with the crisis of identity, that was the major issue actually. Second, their poetry is one of the quest, a search for the self, a search for their cultural roots. Who am I? Where do I really belong to? Whom do I really belong to? What is my identity? You can minutely study this in the writings of A.K. Ramanujan. He has beautifully written in the poem, Who Am I? So, the post-independence poets have greater self-confidence and found themselves in the line with the modern British and American poets. And that was all possible because all of them have put in their very hard, sincere, dedicated efforts in the view to write or in the view to express themselves with the present context. In this respect, one of the major Indian critics, M.K. Naik, has made a very relevant comment. He said, the era of hope, aspiration and certitude was gone. An urge for the merciless self-scrutiny, questioning and ironic expression and exposure commenced. So if at all you try to correlate this statement with the situations after the independence, I would say this was the most remarkable and acceptable kind of statement as such. Then you have some of the important factors responsible for the emergence of new modernist experimental Indian English poetry. Because writing poetry and having a creative feeling is something correlated. But the contemporary scenario, atmosphere, political situations, economic situations, all these factors are equally playing a crucial role. And here, there are a few bulleted points which are identified to be the factors responsible for the emergence of new poetry. So if you see the economic progress achieved through the government's policies of democratic socialism and 5-year plans also encourage the contemporary poets to write poetry. Second, the social programs achieved through the rise in mass education, because the expansion of education, and when the education was reaching to the downtrodden, that was also inspiring the educated people to write about. The economic and the social progress resulted in the broadening of the middle class sections of society, was also one more responsible factor for the outbreak of the newly induced poets in the group. The spread of the English language is the most important factor, I would say, and the evolution of English culture alongside the Hindi and regional languages hastened the process of modernization. Actually, English has been Indianized in pronunciation, intonation, stress pattern, in idioms, word order, and the syntax. And that has given a different comfort zone for the poets of the time, and that's why they came forward for writing poetry. One more important factor is also responsible, or was also responsible for it, the scientific and the technological advancement. The scientific temperament and the modern sensibility has created a kind of enthusiasm among the educated people, and that has really supported them intellectually. The modern sensibility has led to an open mode of expression in social relationships. Modern poetry deals in concrete terms with concrete experiences in free verse, because the poets were least bothered about the rules, regulations, rhyme, rhythm, stanza forms, and the other technicalities of writing. They simply discarded all that and started writing their poetry as they really wanted to. And we could see the results in a very short period of time. If you see now in the 21st century, you have a number of poets writing poetry in English. The younger generation of the 21st century poets writing in English include Abhay K, Arnab Jan Deka, Bibhu Padhi, Ranjit Haskote, Sudip Sen, Smita Agrawal, Mani Rao, Jerry Pinto, Tapan Kumar, and so on and so on. I just pronounced a few of them, but there is a huge list of it. So friends, I just put an effort to collect a few very selected poets belonging to the 3 different stages or 3 different phases, in order to make it very comprehensive, you to understand the concept that we have a brief history of Indian writing in English with special reference to poetry section or the poets writing in English. So thank you very much for your patient listening. See you once again in the next class.